Hi, I'm Mike with Cashion Legal, and in this video, I'm going to break down 5 things you should know about managing theft within your workplace. If you run a small business in Alberta, employee theft is one of the most disappointing situations you have to deal with. Every small business owner knows how much work goes into finding the right people for your team and the amount of trust that you place in people when you do bring them on. What makes employee theft so disappointing is that it's a breach of that fundamental trust that has a direct financial impact on your business. But even if you are extremely disappointed about the situation, you do still need to be very careful about how you respond to employee theft. So with that in mind, in this video, I am going to share 5 things that will help you in formulating the correct response. The first thing that you should know about employee theft is that it almost always does constitute just cause. So if you have conclusive proof that an employee is stealing with you, there is a strong likelihood that you'll be able to terminate their employment for cause in this situation. This means that you would be able to let the employee go without providing them any compensation. This can even be the case if the amount of the theft is relatively small, because it is such a fundamental breach of the employment relationship. The second thing you should know about managing employee theft is that it's important to do so with sufficient denunciation to make sure that you don't have to deal with this situation again in the future. One important concept in employment law is called condonation. This is a concept where if an employer learns of certain misconduct but doesn't take sufficient steps to address that misconduct, they have effectively condoned the actions of the employee. If an employer is found to have condoned certain misconduct, they might be prohibited from disciplining that same conduct in the future. So if you learn that one of your employees is stealing and you don't do anything about it, you might be impeded in your ability to manage the conduct at a later date. That means that if you have learned about employee theft, you definitely should do something about it. The question of what exactly you should do brings me to my next point. The third thing you should know about managing theft in the workplace is that you should properly investigate any suspected activity. For example, if one of your employees tells you that one of their colleagues is stealing, that information alone is not sufficient to discipline the employee. You do have to conduct a proper investigation in these circumstances to make sure that you can definitively establish that the employee actually committed theft. This can mean taking any number of steps, like putting the employee on a paid suspension while you interview witnesses and review camera footage and look for documentary evidence in order to assess the allegations. And if you're looking for guidance as to how to conduct the investigation, you should consult with legal counsel. The fourth thing you should know about managing theft in the workplace is that you need to prove intent in order to discipline. There are examples of cases where employees were taking things that they didn't necessarily have permission to do so, but were under the reasonable belief that they were not actually doing anything wrong in the circumstances. For example, there was one court case where an employee took some supplies home from the office with them. The employer terminated the employee's employment for cause, and the employee sued the employer for wrongful dismissal. In court, the employee was able to establish that they honestly believed that the things that they were taking home were not the employer's property, but were actually garbage. In the wrongful dismissal action, the employee was ultimately able to prove that they honestly believed that the employer had no use for the things that they took home and that the employer was going to get rid of them anyways. Because of this finding, the court ultimately determined that the employee did not have the intent to steal from the employer, and therefore the employer had not established just cause. This case shows us that it's not simply enough to show that the employee took something, but you have to show that the employee knew what they were doing was wrong. The fifth thing you should know about managing theft in the workplace is that the consequences of improperly alleging theft are very severe. If you improperly allege theft against someone and terminate their employment for cause, and that allegation is ultimately disproven in court, you can be liable for significant damages beyond normal severance. If the employee can establish that the allegation was unreasonable, the court might award aggravated damages, which are found wherever the employer's conduct is determined to be harsh, misleading, or unduly insensitive. Further, depending on the way that these allegations are advanced in the litigation itself, you can find yourself liable for all of the employee's legal fees. For that reason, we generally only recommend to terminate for cause in the clearest of circumstances. Again, I'm Mike with Cashion Legal, and we're an employment law firm based in Calgary, Alberta. We help both employers and employees with just cause terminations, and we're committed to providing our clients with clarity, strategy, and peace of mind. If the content of this video is applicable to your small business, or if you need advice on another employment law issue, you can connect with the team at Cashion Legal through our website.